Welcome to the Athenaeum this evening. This is the second to the last event at the Athenaeum celebrating PoemTown St. Johnsbury, celebrating National Poetry Month, which takes place in April. We've had a great month. We've had 4 noontime poetry readings and a slam poetry event. We've had a teen slam poetry event and a reading that took place Sunday of all of the people who submitted their poetry. We have poems exhibited. We had 100 entries of poets, and they're exhibited all through the downtown, Eastern Avenue, and outlying places, Portland Street. We have a list of the people who participated, their poems and where they're located, so if you would like to browse through the town, maybe take advantage of Maple Fest, which is this Saturday. I want to thank some people responsible for these events. Catamount Arts and Ann Campbell for having been inspired by Poem City in Montpelier to bring it to St. Johnsbury. This is our 3rd year, and it's growing all the time. I would like to thank Discover St. Johnsbury and St. Johnsbury Chamber for being participating, getting the merchants to post the poetry. I'd like to thank Tara Holt and the Tap Room for hosting the slam that we had earlier this month, and for Armstrong's Hearing for helping to support that event along with the St. Johnsbury Athenaeum. I'd like to thank Adele West Fisher for working hard to bring children into writing poetry, experiencing poetry, starting them young. We have an event this Friday at 6 o'clock, the Junior Jam, which is the elementary school children will be reading, and I hope all of you will come and support. I'd also like to thank the St. Johnsbury Athenaeum and Bob Jolly for allowing us to host these noontime readings. They get a little hectic. And for having this event tonight. We like to thank the Readings in the Gallery Fund that supports poetry at the Athenaeum in this room. I'd also like to thank all the poets who read here and at various places throughout the month. I'm just going to quickly mention a couple of things that are coming up at the Athenaeum. We have First Wednesdays, which will take place May 3rd. The next and last First Wednesday is about World War II, American perceptions and historical realities. UVM history professor Mark A. Stoller compares beliefs about the war with what historians now maintain. It's a discussion about causes, consequences, and historical lessons. I also want to draw your attention, if you haven't been upstairs in the Athenaeum in a while, our director, Bob Jolly, has created an art space that's different from the one we're in right now. It will have contemporary art, it will change, and we will introduce artists from around the area. Currently, we have Alexis Kiriak. She's from Northfield. This is an example of her work. It's upstairs on the 2nd floor. Her work is available for purchase, and she will be here through June.
Yes.
So please take some time this evening. If you want to go up, we would be happy to have you do that. I am really excited tonight to have Eva here. Eva Chrusciel. We've been communicating back and forth for a couple of years now to try to get her to read at the Athenaeum. I'm very pleased that she is. I have some handouts about her background. She's written 3 books in Polish, 3 books in English. This is her second to the, well, she has a new one that will be out in September 2017, Annunciations. And this is Contraband of Hoople. And this book in particular helps highlight the theme of PoemTown this year, which was a sense of place. She talks a lot about migration, smuggling. And I have a quote. She currently teaches creative writing at Colby Sawyer. She has her master's degree in writing. And she's been interviewed by New Hampshire Public Radio. And she's had reviews in the Boston Review and several other places, and has been published in anthologies. And if the handouts that I have will show you to her website, which I invite you to visit. I have one thing. I did visit your Facebook page, and I know that Eva loves nature and animals and birds in particular, owls. So a person who has their own sense of place and a new home, I believe. There's one quote that I would like to read from her, and that should say it all about her work. This was in an interview with the New Hampshire Public Radio. And then I thought about smuggling as a metaphor, because if you look at the etymological root of the word metaphor, it means to carry across. So metaphor also carries things from one domain to the other. It crosses borders, and that's what language does. Words are really migrants. They cross-pollinate, they levitate, they bilocate, they shift all the time. So I think we are in a sense, migrants. We are all, in a sense, exiles. As Edward Said says in his beautiful essay on exile. So it's interesting also that translation has the same root, to carry across. So in a sense, we are translating ourselves. I'm very happy to introduce Eva Chrusciel.
Well, thank you so much to Shara McCaffrey, right? Yeah. Am I supposed to lean or just bow? Okay. I feel like bowing to Athenaeum though, so I could do this.
That's house and that.
Okay, great. Okay, absolutely. I'll do that. Try to not spit on it, okay? Well, anyway, I've heard about this place became mythical for me, so I'm really honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for being here. And now I'll try to make this place. I've never seen such a beautiful library, and I come from Europe, so there are beautiful libraries there, but I'll try to make this place famous in Poland. I go every year, and I'll be in June in Cracow, so you might expect some tourists maybe. I'll tell my friends, and they'll make a stop here. Okay, good. So I will actually then read a few poems from my current book and then from my upcoming book, and maybe one poem in Polish, since we have a Polish person here. Okay, good. And I will start with a poem that initiated the whole poetics of smuggling. I buy a sausage at the airport before I leave Poland. Kiełbaska, kiełbasa, kabanos, kabanosik. This, my transcontinental dowry, the sacrificial baby of my tongue. Foreign gods hover over us. If God lets my sausage in, I will eat it like a saint, wreathed in incense, circle a table with Gregorian chants. Folkberg variations. The baggage carousel spurts my luggage out. With an air of conspiracy, I transfer this sausage from my carry-on into checked luggage. I look around. I pray for my sausage while I move towards customs. The Angelus trickles, the Angelus salivates, Saint George is about to put his spear through a sizzling dragon. My luggage goes through a sausage scan. Can an old sausage be born young again? The officer pulls me aside. The officer holds my sausage to the light, his babushka trophy. It's a sealed sausage, I declare with pride. I've brought a new species. But you declared no meats, the officer says. Sealed sausage is not a meat. Sealed sausage is a sealed sausage, I say, as the guardian angels of my sealed sausage swarm under the investigation light. The officer blinks when I repeat with determination, a sealed sausage is a sealed sausage. He looks blinded. My hypnotic alliteration throws him back into the waters of his childhood where eels jiggle Scottish dances. Oh, sweet detained sausage, saint of arrests, pray for us. May my new species have mercy on us. Escape at the borders. Oh, oven bird, whose migratory song is a sausage, a sausage, a sausage. Dear sausage of martyrs, sealed patriarch, let the virgin liberty swallow it. And actually this poem, quite literal, initiated the whole, expanded into poetics of smuggling and the metaphor that Shara so beautifully quoted or spoke about. So then I went to Ellis Island and tracked down the historical objects that immigrants had with them, and I thought also about the ideas that they sneaked in through the borders. Let's see. We take the turf with us. We take the dirt with us. We smuggle mortality. We smuggle the dust. We carry the clay. We make the words out of little clumps of earth where all the word roots are, where the lines of poems spring from. Isn't it bacteria that turn the water into wine? To die requiem become a sod. Scatological belongings. We transmit literature through toilets. The turf is soaked with the metaphors of our country. The turf translates bones, not to be broken, the gas of our ancestors. It is a bomb, it sizzles. Do you see a mulberry tree in a mustard seed? We will cover the seed with our soil. We will transplant the seeds in rows 12 inches apart. Where is my water? Oh, I thought it just kind of disappeared magically. Thank you. Okay, and I'll read a poem that features my protagonist. That's a bird, hoopoe, which is a real bird, Eurasian bird, and it's actually a national bird of Israel, but at the same time Palestinian poets have that bird as a symbol of exile. Poets such as Mahmoud Darwish. And that bird actually is pretty literary. So it's both physical bird and mythical bird. So for example, in Quran, the King Solomon sends hoopoe to the Queen of Sheba to convert her to his religion, and he can speak, he's a diplomat. And then also there is a 12th century epic poem called The Conference of Birds, in which hoopoe is the hero, the protagonist, and he takes all the birds of this world to see the ultimate mystery scene work. So I'm personally fascinated with dead birds for a variety of reasons, and actually in Poland we often have last name with that bird in, it's called dudek. But it also means other things. There are phrasal verbs with dudek in it. So that bird has fascinated me, and I actually thought a few books that had this bird as a symbol. Also Montale, Italian poets have that bird in their poetry quite often. Pasolini and Montale. So I'll read that opening poem about the hoopoe. Can you feel the apparition? The hoopoe's wings beat under my blouse. The sound udud, udud, udud is steering from my nipples. Pagan pole dancing, my breasts have Tourette syndrome. My breasts are in flux, as if singing church hymns, kneeling down, standing up, kneeling down. I have to stop and soothe them with new lullabies. The hoopoe is the dibak messenger chattering under my bra. This action is not unprecedented. King Solomon sent the hoopoe across the oceans to the Queen of Sheba to urge her with religion. Pliny said nothing about the hoopoe. On the other hand, Kircher in his Collegio Romano had a hoopoe in his collection of skeletons, among bones of eagles, magpies, thrushes, and a Brazilian monkey. My valley of deprivation, my cloud of unknowing, pray for me, Upupa epops. Convert me back to wonder. Cure my heart of such morbid desires to come home. It is you who take me across ocean, just as he once took all the world birds on a pilgrimage to Simorg. To a new land where jays are not jaded and finches do not fling seeds at small children. When I cross the border, I start hiccuping. The officer stares at my nipples. I carry wonder inside me. I bring abundance. I stir the wings within him. The first time we went to Bulgaria with our parents, it was 1978. There was no toilet paper in Polish shops. What is humanity without a decent roll of toilet paper? Every time I saw the toilet paper, I would roll it secretly. I wanted to bring some luxury home. In Western countries, there was paper but no truth to write on it. We knew the truth but had no paper. No paper to wipe off the system. We carried it like a turf on our asses. What is the culture that cannot regenerate itself by healthy digestion? This is where we beheld the system. Not enough toilet paper to relieve our attitude. There is no good literature without good toilet paper. And since... No,
it was not white, it was brown.
Right, it was brown toilet paper. And harsh, right? Not delicate. If there was any, right? We had to stand in a line to get it.
Oh yes, when there was toilet paper, everybody laughed.
Right. Now actually there is a game presented by Institute of Polish Memory, I think I'm translating well the name, but the game is called EQ, and it's for children to remember the communism, and it reenacts the standing in the lines. And I have a colleague at Colby Sawyer who teaches history, and he actually teaches that game. And the Polish Institute sent him like 6 copies, and it's astounding to students because they've never it's unfathomable that you could just have nothing in the shop, or like maybe vinegar and shoelaces and that's it, right? So the game is fantastic, very, very actually hard for me to decipher, but I lived that game, so. Okay, let's see. Ellis 5. Dietitians in the early 20th century discouraged Hungarian, Polish, Jewish children from eating dill pickles, with their supposedly negative impact on the urinary tract. Bertha Wood deplored the sour and pickled flavors in the rich foods popular among Eastern Europeans and Jews. These caused irritation, she argued, rendering assimilation more difficult in a people already so emotional that they went too often to their doctors. And because actually yesterday there was Holocaust Memorial in the United States, I'll read 2 poems. So actually this book is funny, I had fun writing it, but also I aimed at maybe expanding a little bit the metaphor of smuggling into actually this noble smuggling of Jews during the Holocaust. So I will read 2 poems about that. Jan Karski, a Polish Catholic, dresses as a Jew to smuggle evidence from the ghetto. He takes with him his photographic memory, light, bleeds, and X-rays. He carries swooning eyes. He carries the debaks in the pores of his skin, in his pockets, the clouds of children, the porous streets, the ditches and sewers carry them, pebbles of children in his mouth, These stones were feathers first, red hair, feet of swallows, swollen crosses, red flakes. What trickles out of a smuggler's mouth? These children shrink into ripples. They trickle out of sewers into the other side, into their Christian names. They tap the earth. They are eggshells. He carries them to the land where honey and milk flow down the streets. He carries these debates to the White House. In his palm, there's squawks and whimpers. He places his palm in Roosevelt's palm. His ruffled feet meet Roosevelt's feet leaning on a table. The swallows trickle out of Karski's mouth. The smoke of Roosevelt's cigarettes swallows the charcoal lines. Roosevelt in his swallow-tailed coat waits. His feet rock away the crucifixions. The smuggled Jews are noted down on the invisible 16th page of the New York Times. Invisible wrinkles on the page. A tree gets planted in his name in Jerusalem. Both Karski and the tree take the vow of silence. And apparently, Jan Karski was so disappointed after trying to tell the world, first in England, then in the United States, what is happening inside the ghetto, that he actually took the vow of silence. So for years, he would not utter a word. It's quite astounding. I'll read another poem actually related to that. Let's see. Irena Sendler gets permission to work in the Warsaw Ghetto as a plumber. She smuggles babies in her toolbox and carries larger children in her sack out of the Warsaw Ghetto. Her dog knows when to bark to muffle the sounds of the crying children when Nazi soldiers are near. She carries the shrunk pebbles in wheelbarrows. 2,635 children ripple out of the ghetto. She's small and plump like a donut. Through the gutters, through the tunnels, through the fissures, blind moles dig their signs. Esther, Ezer, Aaron, Abigail, Becca, Imla will need to change their names and wrench their parents out of their palms. She buries their names in the jar. The names wriggle, the microscopic seahorses. Sandler eventually gets caught and tortured. I use here an ampersand to remember her wrenched body, in a sealed mouth, in an hourglass. She's a holy icon. Sandler gets nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, along with Al Gore, a smuggler of trees. Al Gore got the prize, not her. But we have those interesting documentaries about that short lady, and she was so heroic, and she was such a feminist. She kept divorcing husband after husband. She was just committed to her mission, of helping the kids, actually. And so it's quite astounding. One of them, actually, probably you can find on YouTube if you, Google her name. And actually, I and my husband Eric was here, and we've seen recently Zookeeper's Wife, and and I had no idea that the Warsawian Zoo, that they actually managed to hide 300 Jewish people, and it was interesting actually to see how they smuggled them out of the ghetto. So I mean those stories really trickle out of various sources, and you seem to know most of them, but actually there are new stories and new books about that. It's really interesting. Okay, let's see. I'll have one more poem from that book, which closes with the hoopoe again. The hoopoe is a solitary bird, yet has enormous filial devotion. When the parents of the hoopoe grow old, the young hoopoe will preen his parents' feathers and lick their eyes until they become young again. Therefore, the hoopoe smuggles them into the realm of the eternal. The hoopoe dances and brings more dung to its nest. If any bird showed himself truly, with all faults and failures, wouldn't that be more beautiful than hiding behind the myriads of feathers, layers of beaks, and the shriek sounds of the night? But who is the one who smuggles the hoopoe? Who is the one who redeems each fallen feather that turns into seconds and minutes, drifting into air. Who is behind all the imping? Is our soul involved in the Hoopoe dispatch? What kind of diplomacy is required to smuggle the self into infinity? Okay, good. I'll take a break now and drink. And by the way, actually, you have no hoopoe in your collection here. I've been to that museum with a lot of stuffed animals, but there are like amazing number of hummingbirds, but you have no hoopoe. And I have a hoopoe. I have a stuffed hoopoe, which I actually got on eBay.
I don't better not stuff.
Like stuffed?
I don't like stuff.
Oh, you don't?
I hate that museum.
You do hate that museum?
I
I found it fascinating.
Oof, I do. It's creepy.
That's creepy. Honestly, I wouldn't like to kill a hummingbird and like stuff him, but
I like it.
I like the joy when you can't catch it, right? But I do have that stuffed hoopoe, so. Okay, good. So I will read just a few poems from my new upcoming book with also the same press, Omnidom. And that book actually is entitled Of Annunciations, and I attempted to map the biblical event of Annunciation. I probably don't need to explain what it is, onto the current migration crisis. And it's more an investigation of what does it mean to say yes to a stranger. And Shara mentioned exile in her quote. I love that quote. I can't believe I composed it. It looked great. And actually Greek term for exile is xeniteia. And it's interesting because it means a stranger, and from the same root xenophobia comes, right? But really exile originally for monks of late antiquity meant the yearning for spiritual detachment. Only later it acquired a pejorative maybe or more painful kind of forced exile, right, idea. It's interesting because both Greek and Jewish culture, and actually Polish culture too, the stranger really means there is this amazing hospitality towards a stranger. Right, in the Old Testament, a widow and an orphan, I mean, you have to welcome them. And in Poland, actually, we have a saying. When stranger comes to your house, God is in your house. Right, so it's interesting that it means both xenophobia, and that book is sort of an investigation of both. What does it mean to say yes to the other? Because when the angel comes to Mary, it is the other. It is very scary. And often the paintings, if you look at the various paintings of Annunciation, she basically is either saying this with her hands, like, wait a minute, what's going on, or I'm afraid, or why me, right? In the Bible, maybe it was more smooth because she was without the sin, so it was easier for her probably to welcome the reality, right? So the whole book is this kind of question about. And there are personas in that book. So there are dibaks, which are sort of the spirits of the dead people, and that's from Jewish sort of the Jewish sort of folk belief systems, and Kabbalah too. But also there are settlers and there are migrants and there are various encounters. So I'll just read maybe a few poems that I kind of don't read much because the book is not out yet, so forgive me if I stumble. Non-migrants' questions. What can you do, migrants, calcified birds? You perch on the trees at night. You wear painted masks of scarabs. You have beaks. You cast your nests. You pine on trees. You needle. You roam the woods. You wade through the freeze. You come in a veil. You wait under black chador. You churn up grains, tides, whispers. Your feet, dark banished nests, stitched wings off. You perch in a fog. You sit on the camphor tree, on a branch, on invisible stretchers. On a log you pound. It is a drumming station. On a log you pound your wings until the dogwood hears. You jump out of mouths with clump of green, with forsythia. You jump out of doorknobs. You feather the chairs. Swallows exclaim the air. Your feet a precipice. Throat tips ink stained, miraculous displacement. Whisper the cliffs. Pound wings until the whole forest hears, until the logs spark into lumens. Migrants' Annunciation. Stones in our mouths, barefoot we climb rocks. We walk on eggs, we tap the earth. Each foot chants dust we swallow. Our mouth granular, sealed. Our feet rock away from crucifixions. These rocks were feathers first, magma and birds into earth, charcoal lines into waiting, shifting, memory flicks red. Pilgrims, we follow a spirit of mountain up to a cross. Blood trickles out of our mouths. We stare into the lines of sacrifice. The boat sways. We comb our hair. We are the bride. We were stuck for 2 days amidst the bombs in Ashrafia. A 10-year-old boy came with a knife carrying a wedding dress. He cut the dress into many pieces and gave us each a piece. We wore it on our heads and went out into the streets. When snipers see us, they stop shooting. What if we crossed Europe in wedding dresses, our wavelengths stretching infinitely? And I actually have to say that that poem was inspired by a real event, and it's a documentary now, Italian documentary called Io sono con la sposa, I am with the bride. And actually the documentary was shot as the group of Palestinians and Syrians were being smuggled. One of them actually was a Syrian who survived a shipwreck. You know, there are those boats now coming to Lampedusa, and 15,000 already drowned. But I think 300,000 managed to get to the shore. It's a very small island, closer to Africa, but it's, you know, the end of Italy, basically. And that guy survived the shipwreck, and then he met the film director just by a chance, because once he got to Milan, because, you know, the Lampedusa is an island, then they have to somehow get to the mainland. Usually they are transported, if they not transported back. And so he was in Milan on the train station, and he was trying to get a train to Sweden, but there are no trains to Sweden, like especially not the direct trains. And he happened to ask the future film director, and then they made this plan, and they made a movie where they actually smuggled those people dressed as a wedding caravan. So there was a bride and a groom and musicians, and they actually crossed the whole Europe. Nobody stopped them, and they ended up in Sweden. And only later, some of them had to go back to Italy, but some of them remained in Sweden. So it's a fascinating story, and actually did start with this idea of white, because there was a moment where snipers wouldn't shoot in Syria if they saw white, and it was some kind of code, you know, that they would be shooting to their own people. So I just love that idea of the wedding dress. Let's see, okay. Refugees' daily prayer. The house cracked from the inside. It plated and meandered in waves. The tree and the house grew into one. The bark entered the house, inmates of shrines of cicadas. A medieval tower with a clock blasted vertically with no slant on its knees, and the clock swooped like an owl, grabbed all the hours, and disappeared. Change the stone to bread. Give back the salt, and let olives be relics. And I think the last poem, actually, that I read is entitled Of Annunciations. Now, the painting is haunted by penti-menti, incisions, ghost race. True enunciation happens in the dark lines of wood grain, in red wax seals, in 3 tapered wood dowels. A bonsai tree, so small it could fit into a crack in the sidewalk. Thank you. I forgot. I meant to read a poem in I meant to read a poem in Polish,
You can
right?
read the first one.
I will. Okay, good. Okay, it's about my grandmother. Okay, good. Oda Rzeszowska. Babciu ze złotek, którymi obwijałaś doniczki, projektantko wnętrz biednych, hula hop twoich spódnic zadartych na pola, królowo pieca i łakoci z szuflad, histeryczko od pajt chleba grubo wyścielanych miodem, księżniczko odpustów, caryco domowych boleści, cykado miłostek, hipopotamie chondryczny, znawczyni pierdnięć tajemnych, pośmiertna panno młoda w garncu maku pochowana. Jak ja do ciebie wrócę przez te światowe mokradła? And that actually poem, if you want to understand it in English, I mistranslated it slightly as an act of smuggling into contraband. So the book was written in English, but there was this one kind of mischievous act where I took a Polish poem and actually smuggled it by mistranslating it. And I'm not going to read it because I want you to buy a book, and it's on page 42. Anyway, thank you so much. Do you have any questions?
Oh, yes. Well, I've read about you and I've read your poems, and I don't understand. You talk about cabanos.
Oh,
where
right.
Actually, the most important thing you could smuggle out of Poland is dried mushrooms, which your grandmother and you and your mother would go out to the forest
Right.
and then dry it, and I did smuggle.
You
Dried-
smuggled dried
I
mushrooms,
smuggled dried mushrooms.
and you were not caught.
Well, they asked me when I was, the very first time I came to the United States, they were searching I didn't know about, importance of things yet. And they searched and searched and searched and searched my luggage. And then finally the officer looks at me and he says, "And where is the sausage?" I looked at him, I said, "The sausage? You are in America, you don't have any?"
That's funny, so he let you go.
That's yeah. There was no subsidy because this was only few years later, where I would smuggle dried mushrooms, and I knew how to do it.
Wow, we need to talk about it. We Poles, we like to transgress the law, really, honestly. Like, life has no taste if you can, trick the law. Right? I think Italians a little bit like that, too.
Well, to be, you talk about the concentration camp. Well, my friends did not know that they were Jewish because it was so. My only one, Anna was her first name, or Anna, and her father had 3 numbers tattooed onto his, and I've heard many bad stories, so right now I'll only report comedies.
Right. Yeah.
It was another, the empty shell. If you wanted to, actually, because of the communism, we ate organic food because we had always somebody from the countryside who would come into the house and bring chicken, beef.
We actually still have a lot of organic food, we just don't make such a fuss about it. Like you do here in the West. We go to those little markets and it's all organic.
It's all organic, yeah. And it was all the Baba who came in, and she brought her chicken, and turkey was very, very expensive.
Well, and it was a way of dealing with poverty and standing in the lines. Like we would bring a chicken, live chicken or a rabbit from countryside, keep it in the garden. I remember I got very attached to a rabbit, and one day it was served.
I know.
Right. So, but that's how people dealt with. They didn't want to stand in lines all the time.
But yeah, lines when meat was delivered to a butcher, the lines were like 5 times on the block.
Yes.
But I started loving vegetables.
Yes?
Did you always know that you wanted to write? Is that something that started early?
I think mostly, actually, not in kindergarten. I think mostly in high school. And it really felt like Czesław Miłosz. I don't know if you've read Czesław Miłosz.
Yeah.
I love that metaphor of a tiger that jumps out of you, and it kind of felt like a necessity. It seemed like, you know, I didn't plan it. It was some kind of sensibility that I had, you know. And I never planned to write in English, actually. It just happened. When I came to US and did my PhD, and my PhD was in English, I never studied creative writing, and then took one class, and I kind of got encouraged because whatever I translated from Polish of mine with somebody to English, it wouldn't get published. But when I wrote in English, it just immediately got published, and then it actually got me a job. So then I started to write in English. I was like, hey, you know, good deal, right? And in a sense, I live here, so it's a bit troublesome because when you know, shift all the time from one language to another, it can be enrichment, but you also discover fissures and lacks, and like not being in Poland, actually go to Poland every summer, but I do suffer actually when I see my language dissipating, because language changes every day. So even as a translator, it's really hard for me to grapple with that when I have to translate, and I struggle to find the words that I used to know, right? Yeah.
I know when I read your first poem and about the grandmother, and the only words that came to me, I cannot translate it. You talk about farts, and one was podkoderni jadowity.
That's funny. That's untranslatable for sure.
But it's impossible.
That's a great one. May I borrow it?
Oh yes.
I need to write it down.
Yeah, you have to use it, yes. Why did you come to the United States?
To do my PhD.
To do your, but you studied at the Jagiellonian.
Yes, I studied at Jagiellonian, and I met a professor from United States who visited Jagiellonian to give a lecture. She was like a translator of Rilke, and she was at Illinois State University, and she visited our class, and she actually encouraged me and another student. So both of us went after we completed our master degree.
You have master degree from United States.
Master degree from Jagiellonian.
Master degree and PhD from it's no.
And for someone who studies English, to be in an English-speaking country is always an advantage, because our future was more or less to translate and teach English as a second language. I never would have expected to be like employed at a liberal arts college in US. And that was a nice surprise. So that's actually fantastic, because in Poland I would mostly teach English as a second language.
But
so a lot of it would be grammar, right?
I taught English as a second language.
Yeah, and here I can actually teach poetry and just do what I like to do. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Do you have any questions? Or shall we have maybe some wine?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for the book.
Thank you.
Thank you.